Fandel, and I absolutely love sharing this information. It is what brings me the greatest joy in the whole wide world. It used to be my kids, it used to be my husband, it used to be lots of other things, and all of that, sorry babe, has come down, because the most exciting thing in the whole wide world for me is to share what I've discovered that literally has transformed my life. So you guys being here tonight are a gift to me, because I get to feel the excitement of this work as I share it, and I get to feel the magic of this work as I share it. There's so much truth to that you receive through giving, and it is through this giving that I experience the energy of this work. So again, thank you all for being here. Tonight is going to be a really kind of establishing a foundation for something that I'm going to do over the next 4 weeks, or the next 4 times that we meet, which is once a month. But one of the things that I have discovered about this spiritual journey is that it boils down to one thing and one thing only. All of my years of study, not only of my own experience, but of everybody else's experience, everybody basically says the exact same thing. Whether it was Jesus, whether it was Buddha, whether it was Gandhi, whether it's Wayne Dyer today, everything comes down to understanding the difference between our essence and our ego, between our highest self and our lower self, between our divinity and our humanity. It comes down to knowing the difference between those two things. And when you know the difference between those two things, everything, it's a game changer. All of a sudden, now you have the rules to the game of life. It's like all of a sudden, now you know how to play the game. And even though I am going to give you guys a lot of information in a couple of days, because I am going to break this down over these 4 months, just because we'd be here 10 hours if we did it all in one, it amazes me that we have access to this information in such quick, short sound bites. But yet, in the olden days, people would spend a lifetime studying this. They would spend years in monasteries, years in caves on mountains in the Himalayas, sitting on lily pads, trying to understand and process and experience this information. So it amazes me that I live in a time and age when we're doing drive-through spirituality here today, basically. But I'm going to share with you everything you need to know. So if you don't come back, you're going to get it all tonight. Now it's just a matter of where are you on your journey that you can take this and use it and apply it. And the reason I say that is I have discovered that spirituality, the journey that we're on, is no different than like going through all the different grades in school. We start in kindergarten, we go to first grade, you learn that, you pass the test, you go to second grade, you learn that, you pass the test, you keep moving on. And this journey is exactly the same way. You get a little bit, it expands you, and then you practice it. Life gives you opportunities to practice it. You experience it, you know it, you expand, you learn, you pass the test, you go to the next level. But every single time, and those of you who've been on the journey a little longer probably understand what I'm talking about, and I see your head kind of nodding over there. If you don't practice what you learn, you will not pass the test. If you don't pass the test, guess what you're going to be doing? Just like in school. You're going to be repeating. You're going to be repeating. You're going to be repeating. Now, there's nothing wrong with repeating, because that's why we have a lifetime. We've got lots of time to practice. But if you make a concerted effort to understand these two sides of you, I promise you the lessons will be easier to navigate, which means that you'll pass those tests a little faster. And it's not about rushing through that to be done with this stuff. It's just to be done with the testing. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't like testing in school. I much rather get to the fun stuff of living what I learned, of practicing what I learned. So what going faster gets you to is more inner peace. And who wouldn't want to get to that faster? What going a little faster, be more determined, be more committed to the work, gets you to more joy. Who doesn't want a little more joy? Or more love? Or more serenity? That's really what you're going to get. So at the end of this, There are no mansions. There's not like a pile of money. There's not like nobody's going to drive up a Ferrari and park it in your driveway and say, hey, you're enlightened, now you get this car. It's that you will experience your life from a place of joy. That's a game changer. To me, that's a game changer. So does that interest anybody here? Do I have the right crowd here? Cool. So the 4 parts that I'm going to be doing to break down our understanding between our ego and our essence, between our human side and our divine side, is that today I'm going to focus on the beliefs of the soul and the beliefs of the ego. Very different, and you will see they're diametrically opposed. And when you begin to understand these differences, you begin to know which part of you is living your life. Because if it's your ego living your life, as we were talking about earlier, you're not living full out. People don't know you fully because there's a part of you that is behind the ego. The ego is just a mask. It's what we're presenting to the world. As we know we were doing in that class, talking about the front chakras and the back chakras, the ego is the front chakra. It's what we present to the world. It's who I am, it's the stuff that I'm doing here. When we understand our essence, it's the stuff that's powering us. It's like in that class is the back chakras. It's that abundant, ever-flowing, never-ending source of excitement, of joy, of creativity, constantly wanting to come through us, but our ego stops it. And that's the ego's job, by the way. It's here to give us a human experience. But what's happening right now is that we're shifting. We're beginning to understand that we don't just have to live from the fake side of us. We can live full out, integrate both. We're always going to have an ego as long as we're human, because we're human. We're finite in this experience, trying to express what is infinite. So there's always going to be an ego, but if you understand its belief system, now you know that your soul is powering your life experience. It's not just being concealed by the ego. Does that make sense? And I want you guys to please stop me and ask questions along the way, because my desire is that you get as much information as possible that is simple to understand and really super practical to put into everyday practice. So tonight we'll look at the beliefs of those 2 sides. Next time, what we're going to look at is what are the emotions of those 2 sides, and they're very different. The emotions that show up when we're in our mask are very different than the emotions when we are showing up fully as the essence that we are. One is very uncomfortable. You ever heard of depression? That's the ego. If you've ever heard of fun, joy, creativity, that's our essence. And the emotions that come with that, oh my gosh, totally different than from the ego. Then the month after that, we're going to talk about the personality. Because when we're showing up in the world as our ego, there's a very distinct personality. And again, when you understand the beliefs, the emotions, and the personality, it is a game changer. And the time after that, we're going to talk about the language. Because the ego speaks in a language very different than how our soul speaks. Very, very different. And that's going to make a little bit more, well, a lot more sense once we begin to talk about the beliefs, because you'll see totally different parts. Any questions so far? I'd love to know, something brought you here tonight. I know what brought you here tonight. Something divine wanted us to have this experience here tonight. It always happens that way. But we each have kind of an idea, an intention for what it is that we want to get from an event like this. Do you mind telling me what is your intention in coming to this presentation, knowing that it is about talking about the soul and the ego? And the word you used, reminder, is so key. It is a reminder because this work is about repetition. We lost ourselves through repetition. We repeated who we're not so many times that we became that. And through repetition, we go through the process of remembering what we are. So very cool. Wonderful. Refreshers, repetition, perfect. What about you? Perfect. Perfect, perfect. And when you said that mask of that wounded child, that is what the ego is. The ego is our little kid that somewhere along the way forgot it was divine because it began to believe what everybody else was reflecting back to it, that we're basically like frozen in time. When you hear of an adult acting like a 2-year-old, well, that's their ego frozen in that 2-year-old time, or a 5-year-old, or an adult saying, "Look at that teenager." He thinks he's a teenager, and he's 86. When they say it because they're happy and joyful, that's their essence expressing itself as a teenager. But when they're misbehaving and they're being called a teenager, that's their ego in that stuck pattern. Very cool. One of the things that is also very interesting about this journey is filled with paradoxes. So as you're saying you want to get to know this new person, what you're really going to do is you're going to get to know the eternal old you, the part of you that was before. Yeah, it is. We're going back to who we are, but it feels like we're moving to get to know somebody new because it's been so long forgotten that through repetition we get to understand how we lost ourselves in this, tantrum, and then we return back to who we really are. Very cool. And I'll offer this to you. There's no right or wrong way of doing this, right? Because one of the things that, depending on what grade you're on the journey, you discover that there is sheer perfection in all of it. So there's nothing that we can be doing right. There's nothing that we're doing wrong. So giving ourselves permission to be wherever we are is actually a sign of spiritual maturity, because it requires a surrendering to what is, to come to a place of finding whatever peace we can with what is going on, to be able to begin to open the door that leads us in the path that we want to start traveling on. But you can't get through that door if you're hyper and crazy and all wigged out and you can't wait to get out of here, because you're going to be banging on a bunch of doors that are not the way. But then again, because there's no wrong way, you'll go down another door. It's just going to be maybe a repetitive door, which there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, you have to repeat. It's because you got to repeat. And then compassion and giving ourselves permission to be okay with wherever we are. And sometimes these things sound so convoluted, but if by the end of the night, you'll hear that I'll say the same thing just over and over again. There is a method to the madness, but there's nothing mad about this. It's really kind of interesting. All right, so let me share with you the beliefs. We're going to start with the beliefs of the soul. So I went ahead and wrote these down to kind of give us a little bit of a head start. And I'm going to go over these one by one. Okay. Our soul, it is the part that is our inner essence. It's work that we do within ourselves. And that's something that I want to make sure that is really clear for you. And the reason I put it at the top is this is an inward journey. And some of the things that I'm going to say are going to help kind of make a little bit more sense about this, because if you are not aware that this journey is completely going inside, going in to connect with that inner teacher, we will continue to look for people outside of us to give us the answers. So I'm sharing my information, but then you have to take the responsibility to take this and ask your inner teacher if this resonates with your inner teacher. So everything that I'm going to share with you, it's not new. It may sound new. I may be packaging it differently because it's based on my own personal experience, but it's something that you already know, and it's true inside of you, somewhere inside of you. This is the same thing that you have known forever. However, depending on what grade you are in school, depending on where your awareness is expanding, some of it may not resonate just yet. Let it go. Some of it is going to go, wow, I know this. Aha, I remember that. Take it and run with it. Whatever you resist, let it go. Again, because there's, it's all absolutely perfect no matter where it is that you are. So this makes perfect sense. As I begin to read it, you'll see why. So the soul is what we naturally bring into the world. It is the part of us that came in completely already knowing our magnificence. It did not need to learn anything. It came in to express what we are. It is also love. It is nothing but pure love. And because it's love, it knows itself as one with everything else, because it knows that everything else is also love. And in that space of knowing itself as one, it knows itself as energy. It is what everything is built on, if you will. From that come up, the molecules, the atoms, the particles, whatever else comes out of that energy. So there is only one energy that everything comes out of. Our soul knows that. That's what we're beginning to remember. So it comes to express itself. It comes to express its own aspect of the whole of it. And when it's expressing itself, it is being itself. It is just being love. It is being one with all that is, because it knows itself as one of a billion. It's one as, not a billion, it is one essence, it is one being as 7 billion people. Can you believe that this planet has 7 billion people on it? It's mind-boggling that we can have that many people on this amazing planet. So it knows itself as one, expressing as 7 billion. And it lives in this now moment. It only knows what is happening right now. Just right now. It's expressing right now. In this room, it's expressing itself as love right now. It's just such a sweet thing when you can begin to feel that inside of you. And because it is one, and I know that there's a redundancy in here, but it will make sense in a second, more sense. It sees everything as equal. We're all the same. There's a level of sameness. It doesn't change that there is diversity, but it appreciates the sameness that is in all of us. So again, it lives in that state of appreciation. And because it knows itself as one, it accepts everything. It accepts the birds, the trees, the oceans, the mountains, the stars, the people, whether it's monkeys or children playing. It knows everything as that energy expressing itself in 7 billion people. Not ways, but let's say just people. And because of that appreciation, there's an acceptance of all of that. So it likes to cooperate with all of that because it's in partnership with all of it. Recognizing that it is infinite abundance. There's no limit to this. It's infinite. So it knows that. And it can't blame or be upset with anything. So it's always in a state of forgiveness, because in a state of forgiveness, there's nothing to blame. There's nothing to be upset. Is anybody here familiar with a book by Colin Tippin called Radical Forgiveness? Radical forgiveness means that when you understand all of this, there's nothing to forgive, because ultimately it is one expressing in all these different ways, so nobody's doing anything to anybody. We're all doing it together as part of the game, which is, a gift for you as you're moving through this journey, understanding that you really haven't lost anything. It might appear that way because what you're experiencing is just a continuation of this oneness expressing itself in different ways. So there is a gift in everything that happens, so there's nothing to be upset about. And again, we come to that place, depending on where we are on the journey, we come to that place of knowing. So now let's look at the ego, because this is where things are going to begin to make more sense. At least I think that it will. So just as the soul is about the inner, the ego is all about the outer. It's about the world outside of me. It's about what's happening out here. So the essence that I am, from the inside, notice how babies come from the inside. From the inner comes to express itself. The ego, it's all about, okay, I'm out here in the world. What are y'all doing for me? So it becomes outer focused. Just as for the soul, it is natural what it knows. For the ego, everything is learned. Everything that the ego knows has been learned. Learned from somebody else. Learned from the environment. It is the mother, the father, the teacher, the preacher, the government, the media, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the neighbors, the friends in school. Everybody on the outside offers information that our ego takes in, learns it, and then becomes programmed with that. And that's what the ego operates from, is the information that is in, the filing cabinet, if you will, that got brought into it. It operates from something completely opposite of love. It operates from fear. And here's why. Because it fears anything on the outside that changes or moves from it. Mom, leaves. Mom doesn't hug me. Dad spanks me. Grandma, doesn't feed me my favorite food. Teacher embarrasses me in front of people. Boss fires me. Boyfriend dumps me. The outer world has a power to determine how I feel. So I live in a constant state of fear. The ego's in a constant state of fear that the things out here are not operating correctly. And when something moves, oh my gosh, it's going to affect me. It doesn't know itself as oneness because since it's outer focus, it knows itself in duality. It knows itself in two-ness. So it's seeing, we here, our ego is seeing, I see you, and I see you, and I see you, and I see that there's different people here. So we're having this experience that there's an outer world, but what's experiencing my outer world is my oneness in here. So I'm connecting with the essence in you, not caught up with what is outer to me. Of course, it took me a while to get there, and it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's naturally, sometimes I have to shift myself. Sometimes it's easy to go to, oh my gosh, look at her, look what. Because it's been conditioned, I've learned it, repeated it through the years, so it's something that I'm working on. It's part of my practice. And I don't want it to ever go completely away because then I wouldn't see any of you guys. And I like seeing what you're wearing, what you look like, your tallness, your shortness, your hair. I love that. But my ego is experiencing life from a partnership with my soul. Very different. Okay, so the soul of its energy, for the ego, it's not about the energy. Again, since it's out of focus, it's about the matter. It's the body. It's the solid stuff. That's what it's focused on. To the soul, we all have a body to enjoy, and it doesn't care what the bodies look like. To the ego, oh my gosh, why do you think the exercise world, why do you think the world of plastic surgery is so popular? Because to the ego, it's all about the look. It's about what we can see, feel, and touch. Kind of interesting. Does that make sense? Are these things cool? So our soul is here to express itself. Our ego is not here to express itself. It is here in a state of wanting to become something. So the ego is seeking, and instead of being like the soul, the ego is becoming. It wants to become something else. So on the spiritual journey, guess what part of us is the spiritual seeker? Okay, I wrote it for you. It's our ego. Our ego is the only part that wants to become spiritual. Isn't that amazing? Because if you know yourself as love, you know yourself as spirit, does spirit need to become spiritual? I mean, have you ever seen a dog trying to become a dog? A dog just is a dog. But as humans, we're trying to become something. The best one. I remember with my kids, it's so amazing. But they're not ever happy with the age that they are. The 3-year-old wants to become the 5-year-old. The 8-year-old wants to become the 12-year-old. The 16-year-old wants to become the 28-year-old. Constant state of becoming. The young girl wants to become the girlfriend, and then she wants to become the wife, and then she wants to become divorced so she can get rid of that husband and then, become single again and become a cougar. I mean, it's like this constant process of becoming. If we don't get happy where we are, it's just because our ego's the one that's running our life. It's the one that keeps us on that chase. Isn't that kind of crazy to think about it that way? For me, this was life-changing. So I'm sure you're sensing my excitement in it. But as you take this in, again, take what resonates, and whatever you're going, okay, Lana, that's pretty crazy, just leave it here. I've heard that many times. So for the soul, it is 1 as 7 billion. To the ego, it is 1 of 7 billion. Very different. There's a separation there. Again, it goes back to there's duality, there's other. The ego lives in the past and the future. Either I had a great past, life was wonderful when I was growing up, and grandma baked the best cookies for me, and mommy, I was the apple of her eye, and dad played with me all the time, so I want my future to look like that. So I need to find the husband, the wife, the boss. I need to find people who will make sure that I have a nice, cushy future because I want to replicate the past. Or my past sucked so bad. It was so terrible back there. I'm going to spend my future making sure I never experience that again. So I'm going to reject anybody that reminds me of anything like that. So if my past sucked, I am going to avoid it like the plague. But in the avoiding it like the plague, I'm actually attracting more of it. If my past was wonderful, I'm going to do everything that I can to try and arrange things so that I can get my life to be as perfect as it can be. And in that search for perfection, I'm not being authentic. So, if to the soul we're all equal and the same, in the space of the ego, there is complete distinction. And in that space of distinction, we are different. But this is not a different from where you see differences as diversity showing up as 1 as 7 billion. This is different that makes one right and one wrong. Because there's an opposition here. This is the right one of different. This is the wrong one of different. I'll give you an example. Something as simple as politics. If you're a Republican and that's the right way, guess what the wrong way is? The Democrats, or vice versa. They're different, but there's a right and a wrong one. And the right one's the one that I'm affiliated with. It's the one that I happen to like based on what I learned from people who raised me, or whatever I picked up in college, or whatever I got influenced by from the outside world, the outer world. So for the soul who's in appreciation of the equality of everything, to the ego, the differences we spend, instead of appreciating, we judge them. I'm in judgment. So if it's right and wrong, I'm the one deciding. So instead of being able to appreciate diversity and differences, the ego spends its life making sure one is up here, one is down here. So it plays the game of superior or inferior. Also, this shows up, the superior one is like the judge, and the inferior is the victim. So we balance between our lives, between being the judge, being the one who decides, I know better than everybody else, or the poor victim, look at me, look what happened to me. Either way, we're not connected to our power because we're split. We're in duality. We're not embracing. So we can't be in appreciation of things happening. We're so busy judging it right, wrong, bad, good, bad, superior, inferior. And how does this affect me? Does it make me, yeah, see, I knew it. Judge, I know it all. Or the poor me victim. Where the soul is in acceptance, the ego is in resistance. And the reason the ego goes into resistance mode is because it does not like to go outside of its comfort zone. Because this is what the ego does. It draws a box around me that says, this is the right information for me. This is the right life for me. And I know it's right because I learned it somewhere along the way. And if I go outside of my box, I'm going to be in fear. And I know I can't go outside of my box because I know the world is divided into me and others. So I need to stay right here in the right space for me. And the soul that is infinite, that knows itself as one of all of this diversity, that came here to express itself, suffocates in this nice, neat little box that our ego built for us. So if you're wondering where depression comes from, it's because literally the box that our ego built for us It built it when we were 3, 4, 5 years old. And because we have grown up, now we're full-grown adults, we have outgrown that box that is suffocating us. And what was nice and comfortable before now becomes this prison that literally, I mean, we're trying to get our hands outside of these bars. You know, we want to get out of here. The only way to get out of there is to recognize we made the box because we made agreements with information that we learned that told us that the world was a scary place, that told us that this was the right place to be. This is a safe place to be because everybody else there is wrong or crazy or both. So we don't like to come out of our comfort zone. It's interesting. So we resist growth when our ego is running the show. Here's the beautiful thing. When we all got the urge to go on this spiritual journey, our soul said, all right, we're going to get out of here. You got to listen to me. We might take it, one bar off at a time. We will do this. So it inspires you. Why don't you go pick up this book by Deepak Chopra or by, Wayne Dyer? How about we go to this metaphysical bookstore and go do a psychic reading? Or what about we go to this workshop? Or what about we go listen to this woman, Lina? She talked about soul and ego. It is constantly guiding us. Don't you guys hear that voice inside of you giving you information? It's like you got to do it. And when you don't do it, doesn't it feel uncomfortable? When we don't listen to our soul, we just made an agreement to stay in our box. Isn't that kind of cool to know that you can get out of your box if you listen to your inner voice? Your intuition is guiding you because it is one with the source that created everything. It is infinite and knows everything. And when it operates at 1 as 7 billion, you guys have heard of synchronicity? When the right people show up at the right time, it's because there is like this cosmic manager orchestrating the movement of all of these souls, and we find each other at just the right time. And we come into our lives and we move out of each other's lives and we connect and we cross and we smile and we do all kinds of things as part of the movement of the 1 as 7 billion. So when you trust that things are happening for a reason, there is this freedom that you're connected with the flow of life. You're actually, guess what, in total cooperation with life. But if you let your ego make the decision, there's right and wrong, I'm not going to come out of my box, I got to stay here, so I'm going to resist the growth, then instead of being able to cooperate, it's competing. And it's competing because it says, I got to have mine. I got to stock my box. A perfect example. So when they have those big sales, like what's a big sale? Maybe the end of the year car sales. And everybody wants to go out there and get the best deal because they want to bring the right car and park it in their garage box. Or Macy's has, the buy one, get one free. And everybody rushes out. Christmas, everybody has to have Elmo. So everybody rushes out to get the one Elmo to bring it inside their little box so that they can say that they did it right. It's kind of interesting. When our ego runs the show, it's all about what are we going to get out there to bring it in our box so we feel good about ourselves. And then when we have it in our box, we suffer because we don't want anybody to take it. So we put security systems around our house. We make sure that, we don't invite just anybody into our house. We don't leave the doors open. I grew up in the Caribbean. We never locked our door. But here, oh my gosh, no, we have to have double locks. Not just one, but 2. And a chain. It's really, so we can hold on to our stuff. Because we don't want anybody to have it. Because if somebody else has it, then, well, that says that we did it wrong. Isn't it kind of comical? When you begin to look at the logic of all of this, sometimes I laugh at myself when this stuff comes out of me because I'm going, oh my gosh. So if it operates in a state of competition, there's not enough. Instead of seeing the abundance of the universe, have we ever run out of air? I mean, do we run out of water? Yeah, sometimes there's a shortage over here because there's a whole bunch of it over there. It just kind of moves from here to there. You know, if it's either in the Atlantic Ocean or it moves over here to the Pacific Ocean. We're in a drought over here, they have a tsunami over there. It doesn't go away. It just ebbs and flows. But to the ego, no, it's not an abundant universe. There's lack and limitation. So when I get mine, I got to get mine, because if not, somebody else will get it and I'll never be able to have it again. Think about this. Again, I want you to use the logical mind. To me, the only way I was able to unravel what my ego had created was to use logic. And once I used logic, I saw how illogical this darn little critter is. It's so illogical. It boxes me in, searching for, it really wants abundance, it wants love and joy, but it boxes me in and won't let me have it. Crazy stuff. So the lack of limitation shows up this way. Oh, I'm applying for a job, but it's only one position. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to compete with all these people. There's only one job. Well, no, there's only one job you're applying for, but if you look in the paper, there's 10,000 jobs. Or if you go on monster.com, there's, even more jobs than that. So when we focus on the one job that I have to have, and if I don't have it, well, then I did it wrong. I messed up. I wasn't becoming what I was supposed to become so that everybody else would applaud me. So it goes into a state of frustration. And I have to have this one boyfriend. I have to have this one girlfriend. This is the one and only. There's nobody else in the world for me. Do you know how many times I suffered when a boyfriend broke up with me because I only had, that was the one. And now looking back, I've had a lot of ones. I had one when I was 10, my first boyfriend taught me how to kiss. It was like, wow, that was pretty cool. I was only 10 years old. And then I had the one at 12 that was my real boyfriend. And then I had the real love of my life when I was 17. But then I married the real love of my life when I was, 19. But then I remarried, married another one. It was a real love of my life when I was 24 and had my children. But that wasn't the one still, because then I married the other one of my life when I was, 48, not too long ago. So I've had all these ones. They were always the right one at the time. If I knew then what I know now, I would just enjoy the ride, knowing I'm going to have lots of ones. They're just going to come whenever they come. And because, they're all part of everything, I'm going to live in a state of appreciating the now moment with total acceptance and cooperating with the universe, because one's going to come and one's going to go. I was the one for lots of them, too. So when you begin to put these things in perspective, you lighten up. It becomes kind of comical. You fret all that time over the one. But then looking back, another one comes into your life, and it makes it even more magical. And it just shows up that way. It's amazing. It's like that one synchronistically moved out of the way to make room for the next one, because one as 7 billion knows. It's just cool stuff. So if we're not in forgiveness, we are in blame, and we're holding somebody responsible. We're in a state of blaming, and it's somebody else's fault. We can't get our power back, because when we're blaming, we're basically telling this person, you have my happiness. You messed up my happiness. And because you messed up my happiness, guess what I'm doing? Not only am I in a prison over here and you're in a prison over there, but now we're both chained. And we are going to stay chained, because I'm going to blame you for the rest of my life. And wherever I go, I'm going to yank that, I'm going to carry the burden of, you, because you're the reason I'm not happy. So instead of going about my way of becoming happy, I'm just stuck to this thing that I'm blaming for the reason I'm not happy. Does this make sense? If this is clicking or giving you an opportunity to put something in perspective, I would love to hear that. How is this clicking for you, or how is this making? Okay. Beautiful that you have that awareness. When you can begin to see those two sides, you begin to realize, guess what? When you're aware of these, they become a choice. When you're totally unaware, you're operating from these things, and you think, it just is what is. That I can't do anything about this. But when you begin to realize that this is a choice between two perspectives, two belief systems, you can just as easily look at something through, oh my gosh, what is this taking from me? You can just as easily look, oh my gosh, what is this adding to me? You're going to end up looking at the same thing, but the energy that you're going to be bringing to it is very different. The ego operates through seeing life through this body, this set of eyes. The perspective of the ego in the whole of the world is that big, if that. The perspective of the soul is infinite. So when we go to that inner teacher, we're asking for a vision that is way vaster and grander. And we don't get caught up in the minutia of life because we're looking at it from a greater vista. Then possibilities become, well, unlimited, infinite. Anybody else? Is this making sense? When we begin to look at this in a very logical way, it begins to make so much more sense. So like in that class, this one teacher that we both participated in a class, he speaks of the front chakras and the back chakras. This is the front chakra. This is the back chakra. This is who I'm supposed to be. This is my, my spiritual search I'm seeking. I want to become enlightened. And this is the part I don't need to seek for anything. I'm already all that. I'm creativity. I am abundance. I am flow. I am possibility. I am joy. I am love and peace. So we're always a choice. Am I going to allow myself to remember that that's what I am? Boom. You just pass the test. You move on to the next level. Did I forget that I'm that? Okay, time to repeat that same course. But it's okay. We have lots of years for that. Either way, we're here. We travel with awareness or without. Not a big deal. There's nothing that's not right. All of it is perfect. So now let me share with you a little bit of kind of how this shows up, so that you have even a little bit more understanding. So the soul that we are, the love that we are, lives in a state of trust. Our ego is the one who's always doubtful and suspicious. It's not certain because it believes that there's, multiple things that could go wrong, and it's always trying to make sure things go right. So it lives in a state of doubt and suspicion when we're operating from our ego. When we're living from our soul, we are just free to be. Again, it's just being. It's expressing what it is. When we live from our ego, we're in total bondage to becoming. If I don't get married, oh my God, my clock is ticking. If I don't have that baby, it's going to ruin my life. If I don't get that promotion, I'll never amount to anything. If I don't have this person, if I'm not married by a certain time, I'm going to be an old maid. So all of these things that we're trying to become is because we're in a state of doubt that everything is okay. Our soul is completely centered in the self with a capital S. And it operates from a state of knowing we are one. Our ego operates in a self-centered space because it's all about me. Again, when you begin to see the logic, some of this stuff is like, oh my gosh, so simple. But not easy, huh? Very, very simple, but not so easy to do. Well, there's the next one. To our soul, everything is simple. It's our ego that complicates it. When you think about it, back in the olden days, the monetary system, if I wanted a chicken, and you had a chicken, and I had cows, I'd give you a cow, you'd give me a chicken. That's how we went to market. We'd swap things. Today, have you all seen the tax code? I mean, have you seen all the egos that have created through a system of fear a tax code that nobody understands? And it has all these little loopholes so you can get out and around it. It complicates things. So we're in bondage to this system that is so ridiculous, and all we're trying to do is, swap services. I want to be able to drive on a nice highway, but I offer coaching. So maybe I should do coaching instead of paying for taxes to drive on the road. Maybe I can go coach the transportation department. Wouldn't that be a better system? If we all were sharing the talents and gifts that we all came to express, we did that way back then and it worked just fine. Let the mind take over and it complicates things. Makes it really challenging. So for the love that we are, life happens for me. Everything that happens, you find the gift, like we were talking about. You find the lesson. You find, what is this doing for me? How is this enriching me? How do I get to express myself more fully because of whatever that's happening? To the ego that operates in fear, is life is happening to me, not for me. It's happening to me, so I better go get in my little box and protect myself. They're coming after me. IRS is coming after me because I fudged the tax code or didn't pay for it. I didn't understand it. Oh no, the IRS is coming out to get me. Very different when you look at life. Okay, what are you bringing me? Versus, oh no, what are you going to do to me? I better go into protection. So this is how we feel. The soul feels open. When we're in that state of allowing, in that state of knowing that we're one with all that is, there's an openness. We're energized. We're absolutely so full that we can give. We're open, we're energized, we're giving. That's just the way it happens. I mean, look at a perfect example. I love the example of Oprah Winfrey. This woman, she could just sit back and enjoy the fruits of her labor. But I just saw on TV the other night, there was a special. Do you guys remember that she went to Africa and opened up a school for 400 orphan girls and took them all through 12 grades of school, all primary, middle school, high school, and they just graduated, the first graduating class. This woman is so open. Her life is open for us to see. She is so energized because she does work that is expressing her true essence, and she just has so much she can give it. Constant giving, because she knows it's an abundant universe. On the other side, somebody who is in fear, they close off. They got to get inside their little box, turn the alarm on. We don't want anybody getting in here. Got to protect myself. So when I'm closed and I'm protected, I'm stressed out, I'm drained, I'm depressed because I can't go outside. Somebody's going to do something to me. Is that fear again? So it zaps our life force. People who are in total depression, they just have been, the soul, their essence is so pressed down underneath the weight of all of these beliefs that life is so bad and so hard and so difficult and not enough money, not enough yada, yada, yada. I don't have the one, I don't have the this, I don't have the soul is so pressed down underneath the weight of all of these beliefs about how it should be that it cannot express, so it's depressed. And all it takes is for us to utilize that thing that we've all been given, that free will. Now, when we're not aware that we have two sides, well, we don't know we can pick. But when you become aware, it's up to you to exercise your free will. What are you going to believe about life, about yourself? And if you believe that life is happening to you, you will be miserable. But that's how you're choosing to experience life. Again, free will. You're so infinite, you can choose to have the most miserable experience, and it's okay. Remember at the beginning I said, there's no right or wrong here. It just is what is. It's just happening. But if you choose to utilize your free will to connect with the belief system that is true about you, that is natural, that is a part of who you are, if you use your free will to reconnect with your truth, you will be free. Isn't that kind of funny how you begin to play with words like that? And you begin to see them as, this is all, we've had it backwards for so long. So as you begin to write out these words, it all kind of like begins to make sense in an unbelievable way. So this is what I have discovered. We don't get rid of it. We don't dispel it. When we choose to remember the truth of who we are, these beliefs begin to let go of us. It's like they can't hold on. They don't have something to stick on when you're standing in the truth of who you are. But remember earlier I said this is like grades in school. So as you begin to have an awareness that there are these two sides, there is a practice through repetition that we were talking about, through a remembering, that there has to be all of this. You got to apply it on the ego. So go to acceptance. All right, ego, I am going to accept you. You have been a part of my life. You have been what I needed when I did not know that I was powerful. So while I thought myself as inferior, I'm glad I had you, because then I could hide behind your protection. So go to the place of accepting it and then cooperate with it. Let it know. And again, this is a process. We do this until we don't have to. So we are going to acknowledge the ego as if it was real until we don't. Because this ego stuff is all made up. It's truly made up. It's a concept that we are believing that is not even real. Because if I were to say to you, where's your ego? Has anybody ever found one? Have we dissected one? As far as I know, there's no ego. We can't put our hands on it. So if you begin to realize, all right, it's a set of beliefs. It's a belief system that I believed so much that it became real to me. So the fear that I am stopped by is not real, but I needed to have that fear at a certain time in my life, and it served me then. So this is an emotional healing circle. So if you would like to play with that, we can certainly apply everything that I've written here and be able to look at that, at what is it about the ego that we need to go into appreciation for. Because in this now moment, until we embrace what it did and appreciate it, it cannot let go of us. And I believe that it cannot let go of us because we still are not comfortable in our own power to live in the now moment, to live without a story. So it's kind of a beautiful game. The essence of who we are is so fragile, comes into this world, is so fragile. Look at a newborn baby. And immediately it begins to spin an ego, a story around it to protect it. Because at 2, 3, 4 years old, love, what knows itself as love and oneness, experiencing somebody in front of it telling it, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you didn't clean your room right enough, you're going to get spanked, you weren't good, you're not going to get dessert, you're being a bad girl, you haven't been a good boy. And it begins to hear things that are not true to it. So the ego begins to say, oh, so if I'm not being a good girl and that gets mommy to not like me or daddy, well, how can I be a good girl? What do good girls do? Well, mommy keeps telling me that if I would just be quiet and mind my own, mind my manners, then she gives me the cookie. So good girls are quiet girls. Okay, so I won't speak. I will shut my voice down. Or I notice my little brother or sister is acting out all the time, and mom's constantly giving them attention. I'm being the good girl, all nice and quiet. Well, and my little brother's getting all the attention. Well, I'm going to start acting out. So instead of being the good girl, I'm going to be the hellraiser. I'm going to do so many things that is going to get my mom and dad's attention. I'm going to scream and yell. I'm going to throw tantrums. I'm going to go on drugs. I'm going to quit school. I'm going to get pregnant at 14. Yeah, that's it. That's what bad girls do. So we create the system that creates for us the feeling of connection to these people that had so long forgotten that they were that. So you got to keep in mind, when we're born, we are bringing love into the world to a bunch of people who forgot that they are loved, that all that they can do in that state of fear is take it from us. They're so empty that they're taking it from us. They need us to behave a certain way so that they can feel loved, good about themselves. Does that make sense? We stop being our natural self because we learn how to be what others need us to be so that we get to be okay. Being in trouble does not feel good. So we learn how to be good to get attention, or we do the total opposite. Because a lot of kids get attention when they're being bad. So we do whatever we need to do to get attention, to be seen, to be one, of the 7 billion.
Finding friends, or how do I deal with this?
That's very common. And again, think about it. We're all on a journey. Life is like a gigantic classroom, and we're all really moving in grades through school. Grades through spiritual school, through earth school, through whatever you want to call this. We are all moving at whatever speed we're going in the direction of the truth. So the essence of who we are, infinite, descends into a finite point. One little person, one of 7 billion. So when we become this finite little person, we descend into this one ego. So as we begin to expand our awareness, what we're doing is we are moving towards truth. We're expanding to truth. And if you're here in truth and your friends are here, well, their truth is more ego than yours out here. Yes, they're more in the blame game, and you're in the forgiveness. You're in the let's find cooperation. So you will find that you may have to switch some of your friendships. They will naturally happen because they're wanting to blame and you're not participating. They're not going to have something to hold on to. Again, the more you move to truth, the less sticky the ego is, the less it can keep a hold of us. And I definitely want to come back to be more specific with yours, but this is a perfect example of that illustration. The more you know truth, the more you are letting go. So the issues let go of you. They have to, because you're not giving them traction. So how does that process happen? It's a committed effort. It is a decision to be able to operate from what I know is natural in me. And this is where, whether it's therapy, whether it's coaching, whether you go to workshops that are, you're discovering your inner voice, I have found, and again, me and just the people that I've worked with, maybe 1,000 by now, but it's pretty much the same thing. The ego can only see so much, and it doesn't want to see outside of the box because, again, the box blinds it. So having somebody who is one step ahead of us helps us see things that we can't see. It's really easy for the ego to get trapped trying to figure things out. I've seen that, and it's a really amazing thing. They're going around in circles. So you may need some friends. You come to events like this, you expand your circle that supports your new way of being now. Now, yeah, you can switch your friends easily. Sometimes your family, not so easy. Sometimes, but they're the ones who are, I find that our family is perfect. We lost ourselves in our family. They're the perfect ones for us to find ourselves in. But sometimes you kind of need to get a little bit away from them, strengthen yourself to be able to come back in an expanded perspective so you can have forgiveness for them and acceptance. Because if your ego and ego butting heads, it's going to be very, very challenging. But if one of you is a little bit more expanded, excuse me, if one of you is a little bit more expanded, now you're bringing in compassion, you're bringing in acceptance, you're bringing in a little more love. And you can work things out. So we keep revisiting the same thing over and over and over again. I have found that to have an awareness of the ego's belief system is important. It helps do this work a lot more efficient. But we have to get down to the story. We have to get down to the place where did this story get created that makes me believe that I am separate, that I am not powerful, that I am not one with the source of all that is. Are you guys familiar with Marianne Williamson? She has a very famous quote that says that our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. The ego is scared to death, even though it walks around all huff puff, look at me, I'm high and mighty. It is scared to death to have this kind of power, because it was conditioned to believe that it was separate and powerless. So all we're doing is returning to our power, to our source of energy, to our source of possibilities and unlimited potential. But how do we do that? We got to keep looking at the stories that the ego created. We have to go to that place. To me, I do not think that it is possible to avoid that. It's like you cannot avoid that step. So we have to go, where was it in my life that I made that agreement? Because at the point of making the agreement to believe this belief system, we must revisit that story. We're not going back to that time, obviously, but we're going back to the story. And the adult me now is making a new decision. I am utilizing that free will. I am deciding. Well, I'll give you an example for me in my life. When I was 10 years old, my father left. And I was the second child, 4 daughters. I was number 2. And when I was born, I was the disappointment because Dad thought I was going to be a boy. I was supposed to be Joseph Jr. Well, I did not come out worthy of the name Joseph. So I became, I was just a girl. So in my 10-year-old immature little mind, when Dad left, I made a decision, it's because of me. It's my fault. So poor little me wanted to become the perfect child, wanted to become the girl who would never cause anybody to leave me and abandon me. I went into perfectionist overdrive. I became the world's best people pleaser. Well, it wasn't until I began to see and understand the belief system of the ego, but then somebody, a friend doesn't show up on time for an appointment, or a friend goes off with other friends and doesn't call me and invite me, and I'm feeling abandoned. All of these moments were times for me to feel the abandonment. And yes, I could logically go, you know what? That's just my ego feeling abandoned. I can say that to myself till the cows come home. It will never change until I go to the root cause of that. So what happened? Where did this story come from? Well, when was the last time that this happened to me? 4 days ago. Well, what about before that? 3 months ago. What about before that? 3 years ago. What about before that? 20 years ago. What about before that? And you begin to go backwards in time in your own consciousness. You're just looking at your story. You're unraveling the story, because every single person that didn't show up on time or that did something without telling me, and I found out about it later, triggered my feeling of abandonment. Oh my gosh, they don't like me. They're going to leave me. They're going to abandon me. What happened? I was trying to be so perfect. I made it on time. Or I'm such a good friend. Why would they go out without me? Whatever stories we make up. Why would the boss promote somebody else? Oh my gosh, I'm feeling abandoned. Where was that before? Where was that before? Until I came to the place of realizing it started for me when I was 10 years old. Up until that point, I was so much of this. I was so happy-go-lucky. I was myself. I was exuberant. I didn't care what people thought about me because I felt so whole and complete. That leaves, boom, I shut down. I start being clingy. I start wanting to make sure that I'm doing everything perfectly so nobody will abandon me again. Because the pain of being abandoned was so great that I decided I'll abandon my authentic natural self and become what I need to become, because there's only one Dad, There's only one boyfriend. There's only one mom. There's only one husband. There's only one boss. There's only one friend. I need to become what they need me to become so that I can do life the right way and not be abandoned, because being abandoned, that's the wrong way. That says there's something wrong with me. Can you see how that kind of played out? So we have to go back logically, go to the moment that we made the agreement that this is who I am. So that then the adult me can say, at the time that I had this realization, I was like 42 years old, 8 years ago. I had to take my 42-year-old on a journey to meet my 10-year-old and let my 10-year-old know, I am so in appreciation of what you did. Becoming a people pleaser was a wonderful thing for me. I've got to find the good in it. You know how many friends I had? Every time I had a party, I had a full house. Everybody wanted to be friends with me because they knew I was constantly doing for them. Every time the school teacher needed something, I knew she was going to call me. I really appreciated that I was always involved in my kids' school. They just needed me to come and do the grunt work, but for me, I felt connected to my kids. The sense of not leaving somebody, I appreciate, because it kept me in a marriage for a very long time that gave my kids more stability growing up. And then I had to go to the place of cooperating with my ego and letting my ego know, you know what? That was at 10. Today at 42, I don't need to continue to hide my essence because I'm afraid of people leaving me. How can I be afraid of people leaving me? There's 7 billion on the planet. If this one goes, another one comes in. And it's amazing. It has been a revolving door. My spirituality friends, I think I've got one left. But she's on this journey with me. Since this journey, I got a whole slew. You know, my slew of friends, I mean, it's like they keep multiplying. And then they keep adding more. And it's like our group gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Because in this space, another thing we haven't really talked about, but you've heard about law of attraction. Like attracts like. Guess what egos attract? More ego, more drama. Drama for the mama. It feeds off of the drama because there's always something to become. I got to become the best. I got to become, the perfect one. I got to become something. Constantly fixing what's wrong because I got to make it right. If I don't make it right, then I don't look good. Then I didn't become what I was supposed to be. Constantly working at it. Low energy drains you. In this state, remember, you get all stressed out and drained. So, what do souls do? Souls attract other souls. Light energy attracts light energy. There's a movement. People who are all depressed, you're not going to find high energy people saying, come on, let's go out to lunch. There would be no connection. Is this resonating? Cool.